Ubisoft is getting sued in France, and honestly, that is the most entertaining thing they've produced in years. Think about how badly you have to screw up for your own country to look at your business model and go, no, that is too slimy, even for us. That is not a bad quarter. That is not mixed feedback. That is your homeland dragging you into the street because you tried to convince people that buying a game is actually just renting permission to look at a menu until accounting gets bored. And the reason is perfect. Ubisoft sold people a game, took their money, killed the game, and then basically went, well, you already played it, what more do you want? I'm sorry, what? That is like a dealership remotely bricking your car after 9 years because they don't feel like supporting the dashboard anymore. Then, when you complain, they say, sir, you already enjoyed several lovely road trips. Oh, fantastic. Maybe next they can repossess my couch because I sat on it too much. And that is why this story matters, because Ubisoft is not just embarrassing itself. Ubisoft is accidentally becoming the official museum exhibit for everything people hate about modern gaming. So, here is the question. If this company finally gets smacked in public for this scam, does the whole scam start cracking with them? Let me abridge this disaster the right way. This thing sucks. It sucked before the lawsuit, it sucks during the lawsuit, and it will still suck after some exhausted PR girl waddles out with a statement about listening to player concerns. Written by a man who has never once played anything without stock options attached. Ubisoft has spent years perfecting the art of charging premium prices for disappointment, with extra menu screens. It is a company that treats every bad decision like a heavy creative risk, and every obvious customer complaint like a baffling act of aggression. They keep doing the same dance. Ship something compromised, wrap it in marketing, hide the compromises in terms of service, wait for backlash, then explain to the people who paid that they misunderstood the privilege of being monetized. And now the bill is coming due over the crew, which is almost too perfect as a symbol. They sold that game like a product. People bought it like a product. Then Ubisoft shut it down like it was a seasonal yogurt flavor that had run its course. No serious preservation plan, no real fallback, no dignity. Just a hard kill and a shrug. That is the whole scam right there. They want all the benefits of selling you something permanent, with none of the obligations that permanence creates. They want the box price, the marketing hype, the launch celebration, the millions of players bragging rights, and then, when the support cost becomes annoying, they suddenly pivot into monk-like detachment and start mumbling about licenses, access, and the unknowable mysteries of infrastructure. No, you sold a game. Use simple words. You sold a game, and then you killed it. Everything after that is just legal cologne sprayed on a corpse. And Ubisoft's response to this stuff is always what makes it worse. Not the initial mistake, the reaction, the attitude, the tone. They never come out sounding humble. They never sound like a company that understands why normal human beings might get mad when a paid product gets switched off like a lamp. No, they always sound like the customer has committed some terrible breach of etiquette by noticing. That is the part that drives people insane. The contempt, the sterile corporate language, the weird moral arrogance of a publisher explaining that technically, philosophically, and spiritually, you never really owned the thing you were told to buy. Funny how that truth never gets printed in giant letters next to the price tag. Funny how the honesty only appears after the servers die. Funny how by now, suddenly becomes a poetry exercise the second somebody asks for accountability. And while all this is happening, the games themselves keep proving the same point. Ubisoft has become deeply addicted to maintenance theater. It loves roadmaps, because roadmaps let you pretend delayed repairs are exciting future content. It loves post-launch plans, because post-launch plans let you ship first and finish later, while acting like the audience should be grateful for the journey. Assassin's Creed Shadows became a perfect symbol of the whole sickness. You had updates framed like meaningful support, when half of them sounded like things that should have existed before the game ever touched a storefront. Vertical ledge jump, headgear toggling cutscenes, stuff that should not be announced with a straight face, unless the studio was reboot after a meteor strike. Ubisoft talks about these additions like a restaurant proudly revealing forks in Phase 2. Excellent, can't wait for patch 1.4. When soup becomes visible. And yes, this ties directly into the larger aesthetic problem with big corporate entertainment right now, because you see the same dead-eyed design philosophy everywhere. The new version is always intentionally bland, intentionally flattened, intentionally uglified. Not because anyone truly believes bland is beautiful, but because bland is easy to defend in a meeting. Bland is safe. Bland photographs well in a presentation. Bland can be marketed as mature to a demographic that does not exist outside consultant fantasies and executive bedtime stories. Meanwhile, the classic version, the one people still remember, still quote, still replay, was better because it was not trying to lecture anyone every 5 seconds. It was not embarrassed by fun. It was not terrified of style. It was not constantly apologizing for its own existence. It wanted to entertain you. That was the mission. The new version always feels like it was built by talentless hacks who resent the original audience for having taste and memory. They are spiteful toward loyalists because loyalists remember when the thing had color, clarity, and self-respect. These people cannot top the original, so they flatten it, sterilize it, and then call the downgrade evolution. No, it is vandalism with marketing support. That same energy hangs over Ubisoft like smoke from an electrical fire. There is this constant feeling that the people running the place do not actually like players. They like player metrics. They like engagement curves. They like funnels, retention, monetization, conversion, recurring spend, ecosystem integration, and every other phrase invented by a man who thinks fun is a number that happens to peasants. But the actual customer, the person who buys the game, installs it, recommends it, sticks with it, and foolishly assumes it should continue to exist after purchase, that person gets treated like a noisy inconvenience. A peasant at the gate, a wallet with opinions. You can feel the contempt in the decisions. You can hear it in the explanations. Every statement sounds like it was written by someone who thinks trust is a childish superstition, and ownership is a luxury customers became too emotionally attached to. Then, you zoom out and remember this is also the company that gave us the quadruple A line with a straight face. Skull and Bones was the moment Ubisoft accidentally summarized its own decline in one extra letter. 4 A's, incredible. That is not a quality label. That is a cry for help. That is a boardroom trying to use the alphabet as a smoke bomb. And the beauty of that fiasco is that it instantly told everybody what the modern corporate brain thinks quality is. Bigger budget, longer development, more executives, more money on fire, more branding, more decks, more years, more meetings. Not better judgment, not better instincts, not better games. Just more. Ubisoft keeps piling more on top of less, and then acting stunned when the audience notices that the older version, the one from years ago, still has more life in it than the expensive replacement. And of course, Tencent is hovering over the whole thing, because once a company gets bloated enough, somebody larger always ends up becoming the landlord. That is the end stage now. Not a clean collapse, not one dramatic explosion, just layers of restructuring, strategic investments, corporate babysitting, and financial language, until the original identity gets turned into office wallpaper. The logo stays on the wall, the soul gets leased back in installments. That is where Ubisoft feels trapped now. Not like a confident creator, like a franchise warehouse with a familiar font and a very expensive electricity bill. But the legal fight matters, because it drags this argument out of gamer jail and into normal language. This is no longer just angry forum posts, preservation nerds, and YouTubers yelling into the void, while launcher defenders chant that actually this is all very complicated. No, this is becoming something ordinary people can understand in one sentence. Company sold product, company disabled product, company said customer never truly owned product. That is the kind of sentence that makes normal people stop chewing. That is the kind of sentence lawmakers can understand without needing a 3-hour lore video and a migraine. Once the issue gets translated into consumer rights instead of gamer drama, the whole trick gets weaker. And that is why the Stop Killing Games movement actually matters. For once, the outrage did not dissolve into memes, coping, and distracted amnesia. The second a new trailer dropped, it kept moving, it found language, it found pressure points, it found a shape. That is rare. Usually, the industry survives by waiting for everyone to get tired, divided, or hypnotized by the next cinematic teaser. But this one stuck, because the principle is dead simple. You bought the thing, they killed the thing, end of sentence. You do not need a doctorate in server architecture to understand why that stinks. You just need basic literacy and a functioning sense of insult. And if Ubisoft gets hit hard enough here, whether in court or through broader pressure, then suddenly every publisher gets nervous for the same reason. Because this does not stop at one dead racing game. The question spreads. What happens when you shut down anything people paid for? What are your obligations? What counts as a sale if the item can be erased at will? What are you actually promising when you say buy? And that is the terrifying part for the industry, because they built this whole digital castle on the assumption that customers would keep accepting a fake version of ownership forever. That the wording could stay fuzzy, that the access could stay temporary, that the control would stay one-sided. Imagine the horror in those boardrooms if they are forced to be honest. Imagine the suffering if they have to either provide offline modes, end-of-life tools, or giant warning labels that say, "This product may self-destruct when support becomes inconvenient." Somewhere, 3 executives just dropped dead into a synergy document. And the funniest part is that Ubisoft did not need to become the poster child for this. They volunteered. They walked into the spotlight wearing every bad habit in modern gaming like medals. Always online dependence, delisting culture, customer contempt, patch now finish later development, roadmap theater, branding inflation, executive jargon. This is a company that absorbed every rotten lesson from the last decade, and then stood still long enough for everybody to get a clean look at the stitches. They are the final boss of corporate greed, only in the sense that they look like several smaller greed goblins stacked inside one trench coat and pretending to be a game publisher. So, let me answer the question from the start. If Ubisoft gets nailed hard enough here, does the scam start cracking? Maybe not all at once. These companies will drag their feet, hide behind legal fog, stall, rephrase, lawyer up, and pretend every obvious solution is technically impossible until the sun burns out. But the spell is weaker now. The trick is visible. People can hear the word buy and immediately ask for how long, under whose control, and with what escape hatch. That alone is damage. Once the audience learns the pattern loses power. Once customers can name the scam, the sales pitch stops sounding futuristic and starts sounding like a mugging with UX design. Anyway, that is Ubisoft in this era, a once respected game company turned into a vending machine full of expiring receipts, now acting shocked that people finally read the sticker. Keep the roadmaps, keep the legal gymnastics, keep the fake confusion. People learn the pattern now. And once people learn the pattern, every time some polished executive grins and tells them to buy in, all they hear is the timer starting.